My esteemed friends, what hides in the deepest depths of GoldenEye? Actually, I should rephrase. What hides in the upper ceilings of GoldenEye 007? Well, today we can find out and explore GoldenEye unlike ever before, including witnessing a rare piece of graffiti, the full extent of the Aztec space shuttle, and even the top of the Egypt's obelisk, and more, all thanks to the legendary Moonjump code for GameShark or EverDrive. So pour yourself that warm beverage, or cold one if you prefer, and settle on down, my friends, to explore some of GoldenEye's most forbidden and unusual, mind-bending places with new perspectives that you've almost certainly never been to or seen before.
Here we go!
So the way Moonjump works with this amazing EverDrive code is that when you change elevation, so like on stairs or a ramp, and press B, you can start jumping. And now we generally have to follow the paths of the stage, but there are many unusual things to be found. As you can see, like what are these objects just floating up here? And I have invisibility on to, again, facilitate the exploration here, but as you'll see, this is far from the most unusual thing we're going to see. I'm going to pause screen if I can here, but right there, that is a famous graffiti that apparently says KIH. And what it's saying with KIH there is one of the game's developers, Carl Hilton, put a bunch of KIH or just KH references throughout the game as kind of his own secret homage to himself. Kind of similar to architects sneaking their own initials or whatever in a building. You hear lots of urban legends about these. I'm sure any town that you've been and done a tourist tour of has some building like this. And so that's really one of the first interesting things to notice on the stage. You know, if we're down here, especially on this level, like, you really cannot see it at all. Even if I had a weapon which we could zoom in with, can't really see. You can kind of see something's up there, but you cannot really read the graffiti. And so it's quite interesting that such a thing is there, and we get able to get a closer look at it with thanks to the Moonjump code. But we're actually going to find something even more interesting, well, maybe not more interesting, but another interesting thing over here, and it's this beautiful space shuttle. Okay, now watch this. This is just crazy. Look how tall it goes. It goes way taller than you ever expect when you're jumping up towards it. Just exploring right to the sky. Unbelievable. It's so large that it's truly amazing. I wonder if they built it to any particular proportions. You know, probably not, but you never know, because it just feels like it keeps going and going and going all the way. And that just really quite something to experience. You know, when I first jumped here and saw this, I was like, that is truly, truly remarkable. You can just imagine being on there and launching off into space for whatever the purpose may be, you know. And I know on the mission briefing there's some unusual purposes that Drax Corporation is up to, and it ties in a little bit with the GoldenEye and so on. But just to look at it, it just looks so, it's a perspective that you don't get even after playing this game for so many years, and it's just quite remarkable. Now if we go over here and we go up the ladder, or at least follow the path that the ladder is, you know, we can access this whole area, right? You know, we get into this spot. In fact, let's just climb up the ladder and take a look. So we're up here, and everything is fine and dandy. I have the walk through doors cheat, so that's why I can walk right through that console. And I also have on the no endings cheat, so I can explore kind of the back ends of some stages, and we'll get to that later on. But as an effect, I can't even open that roof there. But this is all to say, I'm on this platform here now, which is kind of cool. And I didn't even know this, but there is a platform over here. And we can't really access it, but if I activate the Moonjump again and travel over here, well, we can get pretty close to it. And that's just an interesting additional piece of architecture on the level. Like, it has no need, no necessity, but just there to kind of balance out what we have over here. And, you know, again, I can't like jump into it. I can only kind of go where you can travel on the floor of the level. You know, it's known that Bond is actually kind of rendered as a 2D circle on the floor in most cases. And that's why the kind of verticality of the game is kind of janky. And we really get that even to a further extent here with this Moonjump code. But just the nature of being able to be over here and look up at this and even get some shots on it and see that the, you know, the shots land and make, you can really see that there is collision kind of here, at least a collision with your shots. I don't think you could stand on it even if you could find a way to get over there, like I'm fully strafing up into it. But just such an interesting little corner on the stage, and same goes for here as well. But there's one more interesting thing I can show on the Aztec stage, and we got to go inside for that, so let's go around into that main launch area. Okay, so check this out in here. If I can get air again and jump, so I have to find a little ledge to fall off of. There we go. See, I pass right through the ceiling. And again, it's because we're just going directly up from wherever we took off from as the 2D floor sprite. But as we do this, we notice, well, we're right in the engines of the space shuttle, which is like, what a crazy view this is. You know, this is not a view anyone would ever expect to have of the shuttle in the game. Like, what an unusual thing to ponder. And you can just really travel right up the entirety of this. And it's like, man, whoa, what a view. Not a view that we were ever supposed to get, and only done through, you know, certain memory hacks, GameShark codes, and the like. It's just such an interesting thing. It really kind of shows you how much care they put into building this model here. So Egypt is an interesting one, and we can take off from just the reflecting pond there, and look at how the ceiling is made on the stage. Like these strange square tiles. I suppose it's almost like the pillars are holding up some section of roof, which I just was not expecting. If we come down here, like, I guess we can sort of see it this way, but to see it from above is just, you know, it looks normal from here, but to see it from above is just so unexpected and unusual. And believe me, this is far from the most interesting thing we're going to find on this stage. If we carry on into the room where the first Baron Samedi can be found, you know, there he is. I have invisibility on again. Now, he does react to you with invisibility on, which is just one of those funny quirks of the game. But look at these windows here. These are windows in this room that, like, you're really not ever supposed to give too much glance to. Like, yeah, in a way, they kind of build the theme of the stage. We're kind of in an Egyptian temple. There's something going on outside. But it's like, that's it. There's these windows in passing that really, presumably, no one's given too much thought to when exploring or playing GoldenEye. And I'm sure even the developers, you wonder what the thought process behind installing them there was. Just to give the sort of grand, you know, pondering of the stage. But we can actually now get an up-close look, which is not something that you would really get before. And yeah, you can kind of see, we're up so high that that cloud sky texture is, we're above it, or at least at an angle where you can't really see through to it. But yeah, we get right up here, and look at that. It's just so crazy to think. Like, you know, when you're playing the game as a young fella and not knowing how games work, you might think like, oh, could there be some mystery through the windows here? And it's not one I've ever really heard of, you know. No one ever really made up a schoolyard rumor about the mummy flying in through the windows or whatever the case may be. But just being able to look at them up close is pretty remarkable, in my opinion. I know I'm kind of obsessing over them, but just not something that I ever thought I would get an up-close view of, which is pretty cool. Now, if we carry on over here, you can kind of see from this angle 2 hidden doors in the walls of the Egypt stage. And one of them, that one there, we go through when playing the stage and speedrunning it on the way to the 3rd Baron. But this one up here, and I've walked through doors on too, so I'll be able to slip right through it. And yeah, it comes out at the top of where the drones are located. And so I've kind of always wondered, like, would it be faster maybe in a speedrun context to go through that door if we could like up warp it or something, you know? And then like go through this way and carry on and maybe find a quicker access to the final Baron. But it just kind of seems like wishful thinking, and I don't really think that's the case. It, you know, might not be very fruitful to explore too much There's the crazy Baron rolling around by the drone. Okay, we're gonna pass that Baron away for later purposes. But check this out. Now we're gonna go check out the obelisk. You know, nothing like an Egyptian obelisk. Cool things to ponder and look at. So let's go through here. And there we are. We're in the obelisk room. And, like, look at this thing from the top. It's not something we really ever knew had, like, a top to it. And again, the shots are hitting it and landing on it, so it does have like some texture or at least collision in terms of your shots, which is cool. Now we can't land on top of it, you know, you can only follow the floor plan of the floor, and because, you know, we can't walk into it, even I have walk-through doors on, I'm not walking through this object, but we can at least get this really good look at it. And I mean, like, look at this surreal view of this room. Like, this is not a view that you would ever expect to have of this room, you know? And I just find that so cool to ponder it in such a way that I haven't seen in the 30 years of it being out. Just floating here, like I'm pressing B now to float back up, let go, and it's just such a cool thing to look at this way. Wow, I'm amazed and stunned. Beautiful. And of course, down here, this one I've checked out just moments ago. It wasn't as interesting as I was hoping, but this big room is like really weird too, right? With these two big structures. Kind of an odd room. But if we float up, it's just not that interesting for some reason. Not as cool. I guess because this room has a ceiling. And so, you know, the view's less clear. It's more, you know, all that Z fighting is taking place on the water texture on the floor too. And I can't land in there, which is unfortunate as well. So just kind of carry on. Oh, look at that big shaft. So I'm going to go as far up it as I can. So you must have these big shafts here on this hallway. And indeed, if I fall back down, then yeah, the shafts are kind of, you know, they're made to give that ambiance to the stage, which is pretty cool. And you look down, it's like, whoa, what is going on? Makes the level more interesting, you know? And so that's kind of cool design, and just to see it from above is quite compelling there. Cradle's an interesting one already, because with the no fog GameShark code, I mean, you could, if you know the level, you could see how much like further we could see there, which is just really crazy. Even this shot is like, the draw distance is just so much greater. So that's quite an interesting GameShark code to have on, just in conjunction with this all. But if we start getting height here, one of the interesting things is, look, the starting area has like a second layer to it. And actually we keep going up and you can see this, like the cables or guide wire, whatever you want to call it, kind of keeping the antenna up, which is quite an interesting detail that, like, kind of, you know, I've seen it, but like never looked at it like this before. It's like, that is quite something. Again, these structures do accept the shots. I'm not hitting like a false ceiling, which you sometimes hit, but the second kind of layer of balcony, you do not end up standing on, unfortunately. I mean, really cool if you could, but you don't, you know, so you just kind of get to play around here, strafe around. What I find interesting is, like, just the way that, like, it certainly processes that you're above the ground with some things, and then other things it knows you're up in the air. Like, the way the guards behave, if I didn't have invisibility on, they know you're well above them when they shoot at you. So it's kind of an interesting thing how the game interprets some things correctly with this cheat on and other things not correctly. But let's fly through the sky. Unbelievable. What a view of the Cradle. And we're going to carry on here. Now, Trevelyan's really weird in this mode. I do have the no exits, no endings code on as well. And he doesn't even activate the console in this situation. And like, you saw how I have to go down the stairs there to kind of twist around as if it was normal. And he's just kind of stifling and trifling about here, which is just a silly thing to do. We're going to go down to the bottom and look around. It's going to be more interesting. He's like trying to activate the console, and I guess the GameShark code is preventing him from doing so. But that's okay. No matter for our purposes today. Oh, did he just nade himself? He may have, but he might also have invincibility on. Nope, he passed away. Okay. What a silly guy. That's how that strategy works. You know, Trev has a tendency to do that on the stage. But if we go down to the bottom, and because I have no exits on, I can't fall off and like pass away as you do. We're gonna try to go back over to one of the starting pillars by jumping off and floating over. And I tried this once, and what I noticed was, I mean, like, look, what a crazy view this is. Again, it thinks I've jumped off the bottom here, so I can't land on this area, unfortunately. Which is a heck of a view. And we can kind of make our way over here, which is, like, really not something you expect. But now I'm still strafing forward, I can't go any further. So the floor of the stage is only at a certain level. You know, it's only at a certain point does it extend. I'm running into, like, sort of a fake invisible wall now, which is unfortunate. And if I go here, I cannot land on it. I'll start falling through it. And I don't want to go all the way to the bottom. I have other videos where I show what that looks like. It does look crazy and silly. Because I won't be able to get height. I won't be able to change my elevation to then jump again, which is unfortunate. But, I mean, this angle of the cradle is not something that, like, any cutscene gives you. You don't get to see the cradle from this way, ever. And so, I like this shot. It's very interesting to look at and ponder, and just kind of float here and take it all in. So many hours did I play Cradle trying to get world records, and there's the stage that it's all been set on. Strafing to that end platform. What a rush, what a run. And just, yeah, those guy wires are just unbelievable. I won't be able to make it too far here either in the infrastructure because of the false floor downstairs. How far does it extend back? Right about there. Yeah, there's as far as I can get out. The no fog certainly helps, but there is the entirety of the antenna cradle, and that is a heck of a view too. Look at that view. We'll end the cradle segment there. So, you know, all the levels can be interesting to play around with, of course, but on Caverns, the main thing to look at is the spiral. Now, when I explored this Moonjump stuff a couple years ago, I explored Silo, and there's this idea, like, what if we could warp up the Silo? And likewise, what if we could warp up the Caverns? But of course, based on what I've learned, it's just not possible. And, oh yeah, we can actually get height by, like, going down off the cavern. But if I float all the way up to the top, okay, all the way up, and, like, you know, I'm clearly within the range where the land is here, we just fall right through. And it takes you back to sort of the lowest floor that you jumped from. And so the game must have a very interesting and intelligent way of marking the sort of floor flags. And so it knows that you can't, like, pull off these up warps. And up warps, I guess, are something that are probably impossible in the game of GoldenEye in terms of how they work. Now, since Trevelyan didn't run, we have invisibility on. We're up here. And, oh yes, I'm pressing B and affecting this door. Opening and closing the door here. And it's interesting that you can do that. Like, how can the door interpret my B press when the game still thinks that I'm on the floor here? That's what I find so interesting. But, you know, if I could do an up warp on this stage, on Silo, these would save huge amounts of time in speedrunning. You know, it's just not designed to do that. It doesn't accept that you're going to land here. But yet I can interact with some of the things, like the door, and like that guard, right? I can fire at the guard. And so it's just so weird why some things work and some things don't work. I am hitting a bit of an invisible ceiling there, so that's interesting. There are these sorts of weird things, like it's obviously parsing that ceiling from somewhere. How's the glass? Okay, I can break the glass. And it just really just causes one to ponder. You know, in my opinion, it will never be discovered to wrong warp up the spiral, which is perhaps unfortunate. But again, hey, maybe it's better that not everything is broken in the game of GoldenEye 007. Now look, if we fall down here to the floor, I can, like, play out the spiral. I have air, And now let's like go around the spiral as if we were climbing it. And if we do this enough times, then we'll be able to go through that door. It'll interpret us as passing through it rather than how we got stuck earlier. So see, we're not quite there yet. I have walked through doors on and it won't let me through. But if I do one more loop here, then it will let me through. And it's drawing my position on the floor of the stage in order for me to progress through. See, there we are. Just so weird, kind of amazing engineering to some extent that even though we're forcefully breaking the game here, it still hasn't like lost track of us too much to completely break the game. And this section's interesting. It'll know that we're on the top floor as we strafe along, and just the way it kind of draws in the sections is interesting. But yeah, I can't go over the barrier because I can only walk where I'm supposed to walk, so I can't go visit that thing, which is unfortunate. But if we go downstairs and grab air, then it'll know we're supposed to be on that floor, you see? And then so when I loop back around, it won't let me through the upper floor. See, I'm falling through this upper floor. It knows that I'm not on this. It thinks I'm downstairs. But certainly gives quite a weird and surreal way to waltz through the caverns here. See, I can't even go in that path because it thinks I'm downstairs still. But yeah, caverns, not too much more to see. I was hoping to get a better view of like this crazy tunnel area. But even so, I can't really get a good view of that. I mean, this view is pretty cool, especially with the no fog. I kind of have a better view of it than usual. That's an underrated GameShark cheat for exploration. But even if I just waltz through here with the walk through doors cheat on and grab air, you know, it kind of knows I'm in this room, and so it's not willing to draw the watery floor outside, and same in this room, unfortunately. So no luck there. And that's Caverns for you. Now, Archives is an interesting one for a couple of reasons. If we go over here, there's this like interesting texture outside the, you know, interrogation room that we're in. You're kind of like, well, what's that building over there, you know? Like, what could it possibly be? I always do love to read the text that they're discussing, but, you know, I guess we're going to have to skip it for another time. But yeah, that wall always kind of made me ponder. Luckily, we can get more of a view of the wall by just coming over here, and we can see that it's literally just a wall. There's no additional building. It's just a wall. And that really shows you how, like, the illusion of game making, you know, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, before I was able to, you know, having an EverDrive and could look at it this way, I would just ponder for days what's behind that window. And yet it is just a wall. It's just a wall, nothing else. But yeah, Archives is interesting. The outdoor courtyards are cool. We're going to take a look at those in a few moments. Just waltzing through the secret paths and so on and so forth. All these interesting rooms are cute. I presume this wall is going to look the same. I'm going to get airborne and take a look at those walls there. Oh, it looks like each room is going to have its own wall, which is kind of interesting. It's a bit tight to navigate here, but yeah, look at that. These rooms are kind of underrated and underappreciated. I know they get used in multiplayer, but kind of cool. Make you ponder, you know, if I wouldn't hate going to work so much if that was my office. We'll put it that way. You know, I know it's a Moonjump video, but you can kind of just imagine this being your office. You got at least a window and a couple of filing cabinets and boxes. You got a buddy next door you can send memes to. But yeah, the outdoors on the stage are interesting, and especially with the no exits cheat, we can just float out here. And we can see where there's kind of false walls in architecture. So there's a bit of streets extended into the roadway here, past this fence post. And I've talked about the outdoor here before, and it's kind of interesting. There's like more detail at the end of Archives than there is on streets proper, which is interesting. That downspout and that painting aren't there on streets, which is interesting. And a bit of a fence here with a void, but a couple of walls. But what I really notice that's interesting is that for some reason we can see that basement hallway be rendered. which I just wasn't expecting, because, like, there's a floor above it. You know? Like, watch, if I go in, you see, like, notice carefully how there's, like, light flowing through windows there, right? If I go in here on the floor that I left from, that's not the case. It's just, well, I guess it is, but it's not the same. It's not what I was going for with these. And look, that one doesn't even have a wall. Like, what in the world is going on here? Do those ones not have the brick wall, and then these ones do? And it matches, oh my goodness, it matches like the basement. Okay, I've never noticed that. Look, we're noticing new things even when it wasn't the plan. But my point being, I think we can check this out from downstairs as well, but I'll have to come back up to, like, get the air to float. But this room with the light flooding in is what we're seeing from outside. And so it's like the game is almost programmed to, like, specially render that room. Even if we're outside, like, that room gets rendered for some reason. And I just find that very interesting and unique. Oh, and even though we left in the basement, like, doesn't matter. When you pop back in, you always pop back in upstairs. It's just the way that this level works. Now, another kind of cool thing is this unique texture here. Like, there's a fan in the Natalia room. Again, I have invisibility on, so you can't see. She doesn't see me, rather. But that fan texture is, like, nowhere else in GoldenEye. The diamond plate is. We can see, the top of the bookshelves are rendered. And that diamond plate texture, well, maybe it's a bit different. But yeah, we can see the fan is, like, rendered from all four walls. We're kind of right in there. And shadow on the floor. Very unusual to get up there. And a spot that you do kind of take notice of when you're playing, but just a weird spot that they made that decision. You know, maybe this stage was going to have more to it at some point, or this room with Natalia in it, maybe a cutscene. You know, there's no cutscenes mid-stage in GoldenEye, like there are in Perfect Dark, but maybe they were going to do that at some point, and they got cut. Oh yeah, we still have to go to the courtyard, which we will go to in a few moments. Archives is one of those levels that's, like, full of secrets, and you don't really, like, explore it too much because it's, like, one of the shortest levels in the game, if not the shortest, between Agent, Secret, and 00. Maybe Runway is shorter, but even so. Like, this door is always locked. Like, what a strange door. Just as one example. We're gonna go in the courtyard still and look at that. But, like, man, just these weird oddities of the stage that you really... There's a lot to it. You kind of always wonder, like, could something more be found on this stage of Archives? Okay, courtyard is back this way. Yes, the Michigan way. So I need to get some height. And the courtyard is crazy, lads. Let's go out here. Okay, here we go. Carrying on. Very nice. Out, out, out. Beautiful. Out in the courtyard. Great. Now look at this. Of course, that fence is quite opaque. We can't see through it on the main floor. But when we're floating, we can see it's all just like black void instead of any streets. And only, like, the streets that are needed are rendered. Or the buildings. Even this roof. Only that roof is rendered, whereas this one isn't. And I find that kind of interesting. It's like, if we fall back down, it's like, oh, yeah, maybe the roof extends this way. Like, how does it go? Oh, it was inside that guard. That was interesting. But you're looking at it like, okay, this, like, makes sense down here. What an interesting place. Kind of one of the more liminal back rooms of GoldenEye as well. But when you're floating, it's like, you realize how much of it is illusion. Like, look, even that building there is like, oh, the streets must play out into here. Like, that's so interesting. I bet if I could get through here, I could, like, play streets. But then the reality as you come in and float around is like, it's all an illusion. And just learning that, seeing the magic behind the scenes, it kind of gives you a different appreciation of the game and just more to ponder. Like, no, I can't actually run around on the roof. You know? Like, what if I could and get to a really insane DLTK run where I'm standing off against guards and hide on the roof? And just no. These things are just dream mode only, no reality as per the physics of the game. And yeah, I just figured we'll do one more stage. Of course, this being the one and only Surface 1. And I don't expect there's going to be too much to ponder here, but just to see the massive level getting drawn in and rendered is kind of all I want to take a look at. You kind of get a vibe. I know this has been done before by some of the tool-assisted guys, but just get a vibe of almost like mapping out the stage. You know, a long stage like this on Secret Agent, the record's 146. And you always just wonder, like, is there a faster route through the stage? And sort of by, like, looking at it and mapping it out, you can kind of wonder these things sometimes. I mean, look how just unusual this looks. And, like, why is the satellite loading in like that? It's so odd. I wonder what's up with that draw distance. There we go, we get closer and it kind of gets more normal again. Of course, again, I can't land on it, even though it looks like I could. Even here, if I let go, I'm not going to fall there. I fall through to the floor. It just hits where it takes you to the floor or from where you took off from. And yeah, but if we carry on here, these unusual cabins, fenced in, they almost look more unsettling when you look at them from here. You know, it just looks more unusual. And I'm actually just noticing something. I know I've pointed this out before about this cabin being unique because it's the only symmetrical one, whereas the other ones are asymmetrical. And I'm also noticing now that the other ones have like a pointed roof in the middle, the peak in the middle, and this one is all sloped one way. So that cabin really is unique in multiple ways. Like these two have the pointed roof. It's just very odd to see that. And yet you kind of take for granted just where the locations of this stuff are. You kind of get lost in the fold, you know? Like one thing that I always can't believe, I've never pulled this off, on Surface 2, one of the cameras is there. And the modern strategy is to shoot it through the fence over here. And I just could never understand the angle that we're shooting it from. Like, it didn't make sense to me. But you're actually shooting, like, this way, not just through the fence or the tree line, but also through both walls of the cabin. And so that's why I could never place where I was shooting, because like I didn't have that visual on it. Maybe this visual will help a speedrunner. If there's any speedrunners still watching my videos, you know, there you go. Just look at that beautiful exploration. What a render. It just looks so surreal. This one might be the most surreal looking one, I would say. Like, the forest just makes it look very paper-mache-like. If you want a surreal view, I believe I'm still strafing at, like, full speed getting over here. But I do have walkthrough doors on, and in here is one of the most surreal views in the game with walkthrough doors on. You get to the end of here, just like, we're in the back rooms now. Like, straight up, just opens up to a void. We can't go any deeper than that. So that's cool. Like, that's just so... You know, that's a GoldenEye backrooms right there. But if we go here, we get air, we'll be able to float through here. You might be able to hear my printer activating, doing the dance of its people, the song of its people for some reason, even though I'm not asking it to print anything. That's just the way it goes on these live records sometimes. Man, is that the vent that's poking through? No, that's the door. That's the door on Bunker 1 that's pointing through there. So if we go over here, this is kind of fun to do. If I can climb the ladder, you gotta really align yourself well. I don't know if I did it. Okay, I did. I'm on top of it. So check this out. Once I lay on the ground there, there's no more like change in elevation for me to possibly take off from again. But if I drop all the way down and land inside the Bunker 1 shaft, because I have no endings on, I'll be down there, which is really interesting. And it's kind of a cool thing to ponder. I might have explored it once or twice in a no exits video, but I'll let go of B here and just fall right down. Let's take a look. Okay, letting go of B. Let's see if I made the right angle. I'm going to land there. This is so insane. Oh my god, where are we going? Oh, we fell right down. And the thing is, there's a meme someone's made, but look how much, like, bigger the doors look than on Bunker 1. and it's because it's not to scale and it's messed up how, you know, this area is rendered way larger at the end of Surface 1 than it is on Bunker when you're actually playing it, which is kind of funny and interesting. But hey, you can't even shoot the water, it's all fake. What isn't fake? Are the video games even real? Are these worlds we've lived in all alterable and manipulable with strange GameShark and EverDrive cheats? That appears to be the case. So my friends, we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, let me know. There's many more stages we can do. I've done about 5 of them last video. I've done about 5 or 6 this video, so still like half the stages left. Thanks for watching. Thanks to the Patreon supporters and channel members for all your support on my work. Stay true, my friends, and I will see you in the next stream or video.